talk today is e-waste, the skeleton elephant in our collective closet. I'm Isa Gordon, a wearable tech researcher, cyborg performance artist, and fashion designer. And you may be wondering what these things have to do with e-waste, and for the most part, not so much. But one of the wonderful things about BIL, after speaking about my own work my first couple years here, I realized no one expects me to necessarily speak about my area of expertise, that I can speak about whatever I am passionate about. So e-waste, not my area of expertise, but these are important issues that I think we all need to be talking about and sharing with the world, so doing my part. E-waste, I'm going to do a very quick overview of what it is and what the problems from it are, because maybe there's a few people who don't know it. E-waste is electronic waste. What exactly constitutes e-waste? Well, does it have any circuit boards, batteries, cables, cords, wires, silicone chips or other integrated circuits, coated glass? Then it's e-waste. So pretty much every appliance and device that you own is e-waste. And that's what it looks like, all piled up. So, how much e-waste are we talking here? You guys ready for this number? You ready to wrap your brain around a big number? 50 million metric tons in 2012. They do these kind of reports every 2 years, and then it takes them 2 years to come out. So that's our most recent figures. 2014's figures will come out in 2016. And ready for a bigger number? That's what they're predicting for 2016, 93 million metric tons. So if you're having a little difficulty visualizing how much trash we're actually talking here, that is global. That is global. So, okay, here's a little perspective. If a 50 million metric ton pile were stacked up on a 1 acre square, it would extend upwards 28.3 miles. That's like 4 times higher than a commercial aircraft cruises. Yeah. 30 miles in the air, 1 acre big. So this is the breakdown. Sorry. Wow, can we even see that? You can't see the map of the world, but you can see the important numbers there. US and the EU at the top there, and then China following close behind. But you can see that we definitely, a little more than our fair share here in the US. And the EU as well. So where does it all go? These numbers, they jiggle a lot. I found a lot of different numbers from different sources, because it's obviously difficult to really estimate this. But this is, roughly 73% is still going to the landfill. So people are not talking about this issue enough. Okay, why is e-waste at the landfill bad? Well, first off, precious metals are lost, and thus we must mine new resources. So, for instance, the gold in recycled computers it's much easier to extract that than it is to go back and surface mine for more of it and strip it from the earth. And by the way, storing e-waste in your attic is not the solution because of this issue. There's some estimated millions of old TVs and CRTs and computers and et cetera that are just stored in people's attics and basements because they don't know what to do with it. And we'll get to that soon. What's really bad about it is that it toxifies the environment, mostly with heavy metals. They can leak lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, beryllium, and all sorts of other yummy carcinogenic toxins. And these just leach right into the ground and get into our water. Although it's only 2% of what's in the landfill, it is responsible for 70% of the toxins there. Wait, I went the wrong way. Okay. So, what do you do with it? Well, you got to take it to a recycler, right? And there's all these places who call themselves e-waste recyclers. This is where what I'm talking about probably departs from what you know about the issue. When I found this out, I was blown away. Most companies who call themselves e-waste recyclers are actually relocators. So first they do reclaim, refurbish, and resell whatever they can get into workable condition, and then they sell the rest to brokers. Who ship it to the third world. We call this toxic trade, the practice of externalizing risk and harm to developing countries. So we're getting the benefit of these devices, and they're getting most of the harm of disposing of these devices. So what does that look like? This is in Ghana. They're burning the insulation off of wires. Wires are insulated with PVC, which produces dioxins of various kinds. This is some of the most carcinogenic stuff on the planet. Other plastics contain brominated flame retardants. All these things, when burned or fragmented and pulverized into dust, they release highly toxic substances into our atmosphere. This fellow is melting all the metal off of a circuit board over an open flame. This is releasing, hang on here just a second, I'm sorry. Okay then, I guess that's not going to come up for me. Okay, can you give me just a moment here? Okay, there we go. These things are really pretty scary. The amount of toxins that are coming out of this stuff, I had this here somewhere, I really did, I thought it was open. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this process of cooking circuit boards to remove the chips and components they're openly burned, and basically you've got tin, lead, bromated dioxin, beryllium, cadmium, and mercury are all released in this process. All these things cause respiratory irritation, all kinds of long-term health problems, toxic to the brain, the kidneys, the lungs, often in fatal ways. And there are piles of them. These people are not just burning a few, they are burning piles of them. This is someone with an aluminum foundry for reclaimed, tin foundry for reclaimed tin. Tin is so toxic, and this guy's just doing it in his backyard. The worst thing is that many of the individuals who are reclaiming this stuff in the most toxic ways possible are children. One of the biggest dangers actually is from cathode ray tubes in televisions and those big old CRT monitors. No one wants that stuff anymore at all. But the toxins inside, basically they shatter the tube itself so that they can get the copper yolk from it. And the phosphors that come out of that broken tube contain cadmium and other toxic rare earth metals, which quickly leads to respiratory tract and kidney problems. Basically, cadmium causes immediate poisoning and damage to the livers and kidneys. This is sort of what I've been reading from right now. This came out of a report by the Basal Action Network, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more. But just a quick view on this, and this is what we're sending to the third world. We're destroying their health and environment. Okay, so, did I miss one? Oh, that's it. So that's the effects on the third world, but we're also affected by it too. First of all, out of sight, out of mind. So no one's talking about this because we don't see these piles of stuff around us. So it is reducing awareness of the issue. Also, these toxins are slipping into the global environment. They're putting this stuff into the lagoon, and it's washing out into the river, and then the river's feeding into the ocean. And of course, when you're releasing toxic vapors, those are going up into the air. So we're getting it here. We're just not aware of it because we don't see those big piles around. And the other thing is that toxic products are now being manufactured from this e-waste scrap and coming back to us in the form of, jewelry from China. There was a chemistry professor in Ohio who he and his students tested all this jewelry that came from China and expected to contain some lead. We've long known that leaded jewelry is coming out of China, but also containing tin and copper, and basically the mix of alloys that they found suggests that it was made from metal reclaimed directly from circuit boards. I mean, that's evil stuff. You don't want that on your skin. Okay, so what can we do? You're probably all feeling like, oh my God, I should just never buy a device again. But there are things we can do. It requires everyone doing it. And the three basic points, and I'm going to go over these in more detail, is legislation, personal responsibility, and raising awareness. Okay, so legislation. 170 nations came together to try to create some kind of accord that would help moderate the flow of e-waste from the developed nations to the developing. So the original 1989 Basel Convention basically just said that developed nations need to tell the developing nations what they're getting in their shipments. That's all it said, basically. A lot of people protested that, and eventually they did make an amendment called the Basel Ban, and this does require no exporting of any e-waste by anyone to anyone. Now, in the European Union, they've basically incorporated the requirements of the Basel Ban into law. They've also added additional directives into their legislation. They're trying to make the manufacturers shoulder the burden, which makes sense. They're making the profit off of selling this stuff to us. They should be paying to help dispose of it properly. So they're both making laws about green design that sets what amounts of these heavy metals and other toxins are allowed to be, and they're also mandating take-back programs. So they're requiring the manufacturers to set up infrastructure to actually collect and then responsibly recycle the e-waste. Now, how about the US? Important to note, although they signed the Basel Convention, they never ratified it. So basically, we're not quite on board. The only other two nations who signed but didn't ratify, Haiti and Afghanistan. The US approach, I'm just going to go ahead and read this, says Matthew Hale, EPA Solid Waste Program Director, is instead of making these mandates and requirements, to encourage responsible recycling by working with industry. For instance, with a rating system that rewards environmentally sound products with a seal of approval. Because we all know that stickers make everything better. Says Hale, we're definitely trying to channel market forces and look for cooperative approaches and consensus standards, because you know, like, that's going to work. No, actually, because if you Yelp for e-waste, a lot of those people may actually be relocators and not recyclers. But we're gonna get to how to get around that issue. So in terms of legislation, there are a lot of state and local laws that are being put in place since the federal government's not doing it. For instance, in the state of Washington, very similar to what they've set up in the EU. The manufacturers are responsible, and they pay for the transportation, processing, and collection. In California, we have this other weird system. They charge the manufacturers by the inch, and then that goes into a recycling fund, and then that recycling fund goes to processors. It's kind of a mess. But really what it comes down to is we need regulations at the federal level. So write your congresspeople. Tell them that you want the US to support the basal ban, that you want laws similar to the EU directives. Get your voice out there. This is the big important slide. Oops, that one. How to recycle responsibly. This took me a while to figure out, because my question was, well, if all these recyclers are relocators, and if all the governments who signed the basal ban can't seem to get together and make any kind of certification program that helps us know who are the people doing it right and who aren't, well, the Basel Action Network stepped in, nonprofit environmental organization. They actually produced the film called Exporting Harm that first began to expose these issues, looking in particular at a small town in China, and that had basically become the world's dumping ground. Anyway, the publicity generated by that movie actually made the Chinese government take action and really begin to clamp down on this stuff. And so in China now, the whole thing has gone underground. It's become much harder to participate in this cycle of harm. However, it's not enough. Because if China is saying no, someone else who's more poor and can't afford to say no is going to take it. Right now, it's going mostly to West Africa and also to some other countries in Southeast Asia. The Basal Action Network stepped in and created the eStewards certification program. So rather than yelping it, go to eStewards.org and tell everyone you know who is recycling any e-waste, eStewards.org, or ban.org has a link directly to the eSteward program as well. So whichever of those you can remember easier, burn it into your brain and help make other people aware. By the way, they put out these wonderful annual reports that I took a lot of my facts and some of the images from. So raising awareness, that's the other tool to really change things. Because even if if every person in this room recycles responsibly, that's like a micron of a drop in the bucket. So get the message out, however you can. In any discussion where things like this come up, jump in and be like, hey, I know the answer. I know what you can do with that stuff sitting in your attic, that stuff that even Goodwill doesn't want to take. By the way, donating to Goodwill, also not necessarily the best solution, because if they can't get it working, they send it to e-waste recyclers who may actually be relocators. And in particular, the original article I read that got me so passionate about this, in Ghana, found a computer case with a sticker from the Goodwill store near his home. There are lots of places you can share this, not just at home with your friends. More importantly, your college, your workplace. If you work for a large organization who is recycling e-waste regularly, please go talk to your employers. Find out who they're recycling with and if they're on the eStewards program. And, you know, hold their hand. Make them do it right. We are all responsible for this. Every one of us here is using these devices and getting benefits out of them. Oh, shit. Sorry about that. So what am I doing? Well, first of all, I'm giving this talk. But I am also working on a project Creating beautiful wearable objects from reclaimed electronic parts, hermetically sealing them in resin for safety, because you definitely don't want that stuff against your skin. The most important thing about this project is that each one will be packaged with an easy-to-understand info card that explains the problem and the solutions. And these will be sold in boutiques, at craft markets, any place that people with no knowledge of this stuff might be going shopping. I'm still working on the prototype, so the Kickstarter is going to be a little ways down the road. So how do you get in on this? Connect with me. Sorry. So please take my info, or if you want, grab one of my cards and hop on my Facebook or my LinkedIn or on the Facebook page for the pod belts that I do, and, you know, friend, like, whatever you need to do to connect with me, because through all those venues, when that Kickstarter is ready, I will be spreading the word there. And the reason that the Kickstarter is important, I mean, I could do these easily. I could just, you know, sit at home, make a few dozen of them, you know, every month and take them to, you know, art fairs and whatever. But, again, micron drop in the bucket. The only way that this project is going to have an effect is to do it at a large scale. And hopefully a Kickstarter will allow that. Any questions?